All right. We give a kickstart. Everyone on out here? Is audible? Everyone on board?
Yes, you're audible, Dilip.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So, Anna, here are some of our eminent members out there. But before that, I must officially introduce Priya, our CEO, out here in the red dress. Then we have Siddhi and we have Girish Bhatija. These are the pillars of IBG associated right from day one, and they're doing remarkable work for our institution. So, and we have the other, of course, you are more familiar with the IBG, which if you want, I can run through, but I think because of the limitations of time and your connections with Gothenburg, Sweden, later part from now, you are familiar with, because do you want me to run through IBG or is it,
no.
What do you suggest?
No, of course, you start with IBG. Give us the introduction and then we can add it.
So Anna, the IBG is a dynamic chamber of commerce based in Mumbai with around 1,000 members plus, which we reach out to around 80,000 people, business people around. The board of committee members is diverse group of business representatives and individuals who help ensure the chamber in moving forward with our members' best interest in mind. You would be sure have you had a look at our IBG website, which is www.ibg.org for better perspective. We are very active in the consulate community also. As you know, Vikash is the honorary consul for Republic of Mali. IBG participates in national and international events and also arrange one-to-one business meeting with potential companies, identifies potential partners for strategic alliance, etc. for their members. Members benefit with large outreach that IBG has by taking part in networking events, being participant and get an ideal platform for networking within the various stratum of industry. We do that in a variety of ways, from educational and networking opportunities to knowledge cafes and community-wide events. You will be visiting our meetings and our events hopefully soon after the lockdown, and you'll get a lot of perspective. So our mission and purpose is that to enhance and promote trade and investment and economic development by offering economy stimulating initiatives, innovative advice, and professional expertise within India and between India and rest of the world. IBG aims in providing immense opportunities for business networking with businessmen from all sectors of business and nationalities. IBG would be gateway for business people all across India and internationally to connect and interact with India growth story, both on person to person and using technology with social media to connect with members and businessmen at large across the globe to meet, mix and succeed together. IBG has major verticals including entertainment and media, which includes print, channel and online, and music, startup, business networking, and CSR, government and consulate connections as well. Connecting on our Facebook page, which you already have, and also the Instagram and Twitter. So with this brief kind of background of one of the most prominent institution called IBG, we are all very proud to be associated with. So that's the brief introduction on IBG, and now what we are going to do is to follow the structure and the format of our meeting. You, of course, once again, to introduce you to Priya and Siddhi and Girish, who are all out, and you can see our eminent members out here who are going to, who are looking forward to your presentation and with a lot of interest, and they are all keen to look at Sweden in immediate kind of relationship and all trade, commerce, tourism, etc., etc. So, ladies and gentlemen, now I wish to give you a brief introduction of Anna, one of the white, a lady with who has substance, and I'm sure all of you are going to find her talk extremely interesting as well. So Anna Lekvall is the Consul General of Sweden in Mumbai, India. Anna has over 20 years of experience in international development and democracy. She has held positions at the Swedish Mission to the United Nations and Embassy of Uganda, the Swedish Export Credit Agency, and the Swedish International Development Agency. Anna has served as the executive director for the institutions internationally, and has worked with government initiatives as well, which is called the Swedish Center for Preventing Violence and Extremism. Interesting. Anna is specialized on the international economic and development, democracy, diversity, and human rights. In 2000, she was elected one of the most prestigious Jonas Weiss Memorial Award, about which we spoke Anna yesterday, which is her work within the Juba peace process. She holds BA in International Economics and from Gothenburg School of the Business, Economics, and a master's degree in democratic development from the...
Dilip, I'm sorry to interfere. Maybe you will have to put everyone on mute first and then go ahead, because there is a lot of background sound which is coming in between.
Okay.
And I think let's just start the session. You know, let's give the platform to Anna. Let's
Could
hear it from Anna.
Could it be
now.
a bit louder, please?
All right. So Anna, over to you now. Each one of us are looking forward to your presentation. After that, we will briefly take on the Q&A and then give a big thank you to you. Anna, over to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Please put everyone on mute.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay.
Unmute. Okay. So you all hear me now? Is that
Yes.
working? Yes. Very good. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me. It's a very, I've been following the IBG a little bit from the side, and very much in connection with Vikash. And I've been excited to engage with you. I think we already had this plan for March, and then of course the whole COVID situation came. So now I'm happy to be able to join you all on this digital setting. I'll just give a brief introduction about what the Consulate is doing, you know, what our focus area is, a bit on the Swedish-India relations and the businesses side of it. And then yeah, let's have a conversation rather than a long speech. But as I myself arrived here in September as the new Consul General of Sweden to Mumbai, it's been a fantastic year. I should say that I'm the third Consul General here. Sweden opened this office in 2012, and it was very much it's very much an indication, which I'll get more into, of the absolutely booming relations between Sweden and India, and also the growing business and trade relations. So our office, Sweden, decided that it was key to open a consulate here, staffed with diplomatic staff, to be able to nurture and expand those relations, both from the, of course, trade and business side, but also cultural exchange, informing about Sweden, engaging on some of the core areas of values that we engage with, which are very much on sustainability, innovation, gender issues. So we have, we're a very small office, but we have a broad agenda and a broad palette. If I just go a little bit on this first year, I think it's also indicative of the engagement. My engagement here started off with the highest level of visits that's absolutely possible between two countries, where we had the royal visit of His Majesty, the King of Sweden, and the Queen of Sweden. They came in December. They did a visit all over India, but we were very happy that they, as part of that, spent part of that visit in Mumbai. So that was a head start, and I think it was one of those. We also had. It's really showing the commitment and the engagement. If I just start with the relations between our countries, it's been absolutely booming for the past, if you take 5-6 years. We've had a very intense exchange between our prime ministers at every level, and there's also, and now with a big state visit, it was really a crowning of this long-term development that has been happening, has been incredibly positive. We also had the biggest business delegation ever as part of the royal visit. We often combine it as a, so they're very big visits. It's not only the royal court coming, it's actually also, we had 100 Swedish business leaders and companies, including at the absolute, most key people who were coming here as part of that visit. Again, deepening relations on all aspects, government relations, business relations, and I should say that this has been going on. Some of the key areas of the partnership between Sweden and India was deepened then. It's been very much in the area of healthcare. We've had a health cooperation with India for a very long time. It's 10 years, and my understanding, that's been very successful and deepening. We've also cooperated very much on innovation. There's a strong innovation partnership. Sweden, as you may know, is one of the most innovative countries in the world. It always ranks very, very high on all the rankings of both innovation indexes in various forms. It's a country that is incredibly focused on finding new solutions to issues, very digitalized. It's seen as the Silicon Valley of Europe, with a very high number of unicorns in substantiated to our population. We have a very small population, but as you can see, we're very outward, we're very oriented in engaging with the world, and that's also one of our key assets. It's that we both are a very strong trade partner, and we engage with the globally like that. So innovation has been, and we're also spending huge amounts of research and knowledge development within the new industry, the new formats, artificial intelligence, everything that's coming. So there's a lot of takeaways from there. So there, with the partnership with India, Sweden on innovation is very interesting, and it's fairly, it's developing still, but it's definitely key. Business side, we have one of the most active roundtables between Swedish and Indian business leaders. Ours is called the India-Sweden Business Leaders Roundtable, is split. And on the Swedish side, we have it's very active within several, within smart cities, digitalization. So there's a number of these particular areas of groups, and it's been a very active engagement. We have a very good secretariat that continues to drive that. So we are looking at a lot of booming things. I should also mention sustainability. We can come back to that. Sustainability, green recovery is absolutely one of our most fundamental areas of engagement, both in terms of business, but also in terms of government focus areas. Gender issues are something we're also very much engaging with. We can talk more about that. I should also, I think, mention the history of business in India, and not least Maharashtra, which is the core area where we have Swedish businesses. But it's a very long-term relationship. The first Swedish business started here at the turn of the century with Ericsson coming in and being the pioneer, and I think built a lot of India's infrastructure when it comes to the area of not least telecom. And then we've had several waves. We had a second and third wave of Swedish companies entering and establishing, investing in India. And that was mainly around the 60s and 70s. Based in Pune very much, land was given by Nero for a number of Swedish companies to start. It's become a bit of a manufacturing hub. In India in total, there are about 200 Swedish companies creating 2.2 million indirect jobs. Half of those, or at least 100 of them, have a presence in Maharashtra, primarily centered around Pune, and where there's a lot of manufacturing hub. These are companies like Alfa Laval, Tetra Pak, Atlas Copco, Sandvik, heavy industry actors. And they've been here now for, 60 years, and they continue to engage and develop and overall have a very positive view over. Of course, now it's been a challenging time with COVID for many, but it's we hope we'll be picking up again. Now, I would also mention like a third wave that's been happening if you take over the past 10, 15, 20 years, it's been a new wave of Swedish companies engaging more on the consumption side. It's been companies like, and also on the digital side, startup. You have H&M, you have IKEA that's moving in, substantively in India and investing a lot. You have Volvo who's been moving in, and we're hoping also can develop more of the electrical mobility in the future. We have Spotify. I'm not sure everyone knows. Spotify is one of the Swedish unicorns. Truecaller. There's a new digital startup called Storytel, which has also moved in just very recently. So there's a continued flow of engaging and very positive. I think overall the business climate there are of course the challenges, but it's very much a positive approach. Most have been looking at continued investment here and planning. We'll see how much the COVID situation has now altered and regrouped. This is all new. We'll have to follow it. But I think overall, there's a lot of interest in India from the Swedish side. Following it, it does have its challenges from a business where you're also foreign business investor, but it's a lot of also positive takeaways. So we're hoping to be able to develop that further in a number of key areas. And so that's a conversation that we'll continue to have. Why don't I stop there and why don't we get into some of the other issues for questions or to have more of a conversation. How about that as a start?
Perfect. Anna, wonderful. Each one of us are truly impressed and enlightened with your excellent presentation. We had to see a few of like these. We are all happy to have connected with you. I have just one or two small points in terms of trade between our two great nations. One is that India and Swedish diplomatic ties were established in 1949, which is absolutely remarkable. And India is Sweden's 19th largest export market and third largest trade partner after China and Japan in Asia.
Mm.
So that speaks a lot about how our two great nations have nurtured relationship, and we look forward to going forward in more strengthening bilateral relation between India and Sweden. And I'm sure that since you are here just recently in September 19, I'm sure you're going to be associated here in Mumbai as the Consul General for the next 3.5 or maybe that timeline or so. So excellent. We are truly happy, and I'm sure we will now go. It's 11:21, and we could try and dedicate some time to the Q&A session where I could open up for the chat box and look at what specific questions our participants have. They're quite large numbers. I can see close to 75 who are active here in looking to your expert comments and interesting deliberations, Anna.
Excellent. Let's, why don't we go ahead with that? It'll be more,
Sure.
more interesting with a conversation, and let's get into different topics. I would also be very interested to hear from your group and partners, you know, what's the big picture of Sweden? What is the, what are the ideas? Is there, what do you know about it? What would be interesting areas for business engagement? I would be very keen to hear that. So if it's possible in this format to also have some of your members also, you know, having some views on that, that would be very interesting and helpful.
So what fundamentally, you've got a very important point. I think everybody is presently looking at kind of, you know, more getting into business and then, you know, consolidating and then taking forward. I'm sure few of our members would be very, very glad to engage in terms of collaboration, investment, joint ventures, strategic alliance. We have eminent members out here who wish to do large business with Sweden. Vikash, all right. So we were talking about the trade delegation from India to Sweden in summer of 2021, about which we will have more kind of discussions to take it forward from here. So there is a question. The question is one of the question is, we hear about Swedish companies wanting to move out of China. Would they be interested in India? This is from one of our members out here. Would you like to respond, please?
Well, I can't. I wouldn't know the sort of specifics. There is an increased. There is an interest in India, and there is quite a lot of the big Swedish companies do have a presence here. There are ongoing discussions how to expand and be, you know, that in India manufacturing here and being part of the global supply chain and increasing that level in India. Whether they're actually moving out of China or not, and so on, that's not really. I don't have a concrete picture. I'm not following China from that sense, but I do understand that there is an ongoing discussion where to you know, increase its presence and manufacturing and looking globally at the global, you know, supply chain. So it's definitely an issue that is being considered, but whether it's but you know, I wouldn't want to say anything absolutely concretely on that sense, but it's an ongoing. Okay,
quite understandable. Priya has question about the IBG is doing tie-up with chambers of commerce internationally. Can you be kind enough to connect IBG through your headquarters in Gothenburg as to how we could take this relationship from here?
Absolutely, that's a straight. Absolutely, we're already decided that we'll follow up after this. To you send us a request in terms of also what sort of sectors and areas, and we will see what sort of what would be the most interesting chambers and to engage with. So absolutely, we'll follow up on.
Certainly, we are going to do that as soon as possible. There is a member called Mr. Harin Sheth who says, I'm in school and children book publisher in India. What are the opportunities for us in Sweden specifically?
Oh, that's a very specific. Why don't we explore that? We haven't. That's a new area. School and book publishing. There is a lot of publishing houses, of course. So I think it would be to engage with some of those. We're happy to provide some of the key ones that are active in school and book publishing. So you can connect with us and ask ask for who what would you want key areas, and we'd be happy to provide you with some of the key actors.
Very well.
Thank you.
Wonderful. There is also a question from Mr. Harish. What is the scope of business in fashion with Sweden? How do we start with developing business with Swedish customers? Would appreciate your help on. Thanks.
Sure. Fashion is one a very active Swedish area of business. It's been growing a lot. There's a lot of Swedish fashion. You have both the huge ones, if you talk about companies, H&M, of course, but you also have a number of smaller ones. We actually, the Consulate actually organized an event last year, which was called Swedish Style Mumbai, where there was a big effort. It was a big event to connect both Swedish actors within fashion primarily and Indian actors. We're looking at possibilities to do a follow-up of that, very much to engage and find connections on both sides to take it forward. It was actually in June, just a year ago, and we've been discussing this also with this Business Sweden, which is our business agency. We'll see if we can continue on that path. Any interest in this area, again, connect with us, and we'll make sure to engage with you when we have something.
Sure. There's one more question from Dheeraj, an observation. Isn't it an irony of fate that Sweden and Mumbai are more or less in the same boat currently? We have more or less similar populations and GDP, and even the COVID numbers are similar as of now. It's the kind of a question coming from one of the members.
Yeah, we are very absolutely. If you take the COVID situation, it's a challenge for us all at this time. Mumbai, big city, in Sweden, it was Stockholm, which is the capital, that was hardly hit by the virus itself, and we've been like the whole world, of course, at this time. But yes, we are engaging very much to find to slow down the spread. And I know I can just mention, I know that there has been a lot of discussion about Sweden having a slightly different strategy. It avoided the complete lockdown, and that has been both discussed in many angles. I think what's the key message is that I think we've all had the same goals. Sweden has avoided the more of the bans, but on the other hand, have been quite successful in voluntary work from home, social distancing, hygiene, and so on. And it's been successful in terms of flattening the curve. But we're also looking at this in the long term. The virus will be with us for some time, so it's also an effort to find a sustained strategy. But it is looking positive now. We've had some higher death cases among the elderly than what was the wish for, but it's also been corrected, and we're processing it ahead. Anyway, we're thinking, I mean, this is something, an area, and also an area for cooperation within health between Sweden and India. And there is an active discussion about how to move forward also in that area.
Perfect. One more question from Mr. Abhimanyu. He says, as you said, Sweden being a Silicon Valley of Europe and India being a strong emerging tech player, does Sweden plan to have a specific fund allocation for collaboration with India in tech sector?
There is within the innovation partnership, which is a formal partnership between Sweden and India, there is a special fund, and where there are calls for cooperating and doing joint activities to spur that. Right. So there is such a formal arrangement. There is also, and also there will be some very interesting global innovation days in Sweden, where all the countries will element from all over the world. November, which we can have the look out for. There's also a lot of activity from Swedish India Business Council that are engaging very much bringing startups together, both from Sweden and India. And anyone interested in that, happy to connect. It's a very active association, a bit like yours, which are really bringing a lot of, not least engaging in the startup scene and the digital scene.
Okay. One point coming from my side is that IBG would be glad to be introduced by you to India-Swedish Business Council in Bombay, where we would like to stay connected, interact, and
Absolutely.
So that's one request from IBG to you. So there is a lady by Pratna. She wants to know about opportunities in Sweden for a sustainable apparel brand. As you spoke about sustainability, how lucrative is the import-export for clothing industry?
Well, I mean, in terms of the sustainability, not least within fashion, it's fashion, I understand, apparel, it's clothing, right? I'm not a sector expert. I couldn't give you numbers. You could, I could connect you with someone who would be able to do so. But overall, I would say the interest for sustainability in Sweden is absolutely huge. It's also consumer, from a consumer perspective. I mean, it's very much, it's not only government driven, it's a very much of an active individual engagement. And there are a lot of choices consumers are making in Sweden, which is on sustainable goods over across the board. Clothing is absolutely one of them. So that is in for the long term. Now, I mean, as a general comment, there's a lot of interest in that area, but I'm happy to connect anyone with particular interests. Yeah, I think we'll connect it to the chamber's actors. We'll find an approach.
Perfect, thank you. Jayashree has a question. Are there any plans for student exchange program between our two countries?
There has been, there was the first years where the consulate opened, there was a lot of effort to engage in the student exchange area. It was so successful, I think, that it has gone up. It's been very, it increased the numbers quite rapidly, so that we've actually reached a maturity But there is an active student exchange. There is a lot of on both sides, which is very encouraging. And so it's still a area of engagement, but it's not something that we're pushing as much anymore as we did for a while.
So we have another member called Cash Dalal. He would like to get connected with renewable energy funds and electric vehicle charging stations manufacturers. So that is actually a specific question, and he would be very glad to write to you with more details, and then maybe your office in the trade section could take it forward.
Yeah. I think we'll do like this. After this, I'll give you the connection with my colleague who works with the trade issues.
Okay.
You can direct we can give that email to your group afterwards, and then you can direct all these queries, and we'll help you to get connected.
There is a question from right. There is a question from a lady called Purvi. She says, I head an NGO called Catalyst India, which works with young women in engineering and prepared them for leadership roles so that more women reach senior management. Can we connect to collaborator? This is from Purvi Shah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're also engaging. I'm happy also. There's we are looking at various ways to engage and strengthen the gender equality issues. One of the projects that Sweden and Swedish companies have been engaging with here is called Kraftsamla. It's perhaps not engineering, but it's more on the skilling level. But I'm happy to talk more about that. And absolutely, just connect with us. We'll see what we can do.
Perfect. So that's really very nice of you. And may I know the person who, just for the information advance, the person who heads the trade commissioner in Mumbai at the Consulate General? Yeah?
We have a trade officer called Mr. Pradnesh Desai. Actually, I'm realizing he should have been part of this conversation, but I'll connect him after this. So Pradnesh is our entry point and also very helpful. We also have in India Business Sweden. There's a government and actually an agency that's half government, half private, owned by Swedish companies, but who is also not based in Mumbai, but based in Delhi and Bangalore. But they do a lot of work, and we are in terms of expanding the business side. So that's also an actor. There's also Swedish Chambers of Commerce for India, which is based in Delhi, but we are also very active in Maharashtra. So there's a number of actors and opportunities. So depending a little bit on the interest and angle and approach, we'll be sure to connect you with the right ones.
Very well. There is a gentleman member called Dr. Wasim. Any scope for digital healthcare between India and Sweden?
Digital healthcare is absolutely one of the areas which is that is an interesting area, and that's a possibility to expand. There is a lot of takeaways. Healthcare in general is a key cooperation area. So there is a scope for deepening that, and also not least in when you look at post-COVID healthcare, it was actually just recently in a discussion between our prime ministers, because even during COVID, our government interactions have been quite active, which I'm very happy to say. And the cooperation in the healthcare area, and since Sweden is one of those actors very much both doing strong on innovation and digitalization, this is definitely a possibility for looking at further into.
Right. We have one more question from member Smita. Hi, I am into embroidered tapestry art and would like to know what is the take on art and handicraft from India into Sweden, the prospects.
You know, I can offer you my general
Sure. Yeah.
general take. You may want to engage with more sort of a business side of it, but I think in terms of handicraft, what did you say? Artistic?
Embroidered handicraft tapestry.
Embroidered tapestry. What is tapestry? Just so I'm.
Tapestry is the design on the textile. Furniture.
I see. I'm not sure actually. I think what I've seen here is a huge market for this.
All right.
It's not what I've seen if you look at sort of it's I don't think it's a big market, but I am not an expert, and maybe it's an untapped market. I don't know, but it's nothing I come across. It's not a big as compared to here, which clearly a very big big market for it.
Right.
It's not something I'm seeing in Sweden. So, but that's
Correct.
just my perception.
Sure. And we are unable to really take on more questions, unfortunately, because of the paucity of time, and you have a con call just a few minutes down the line, 11:42, and it's really a time for us to say a big thank you. Each one of us had some excellent presentation, and all of us are quite enlightened and enriched in this presentation. Sincere compliments. You spoke exceedingly well. You spoke from your heart. For being a Swedish national, they're very warm, as I know, and sure that our relationship is going to go strengthen day by day, and we'll. And me and Vikash and other colleagues of the IBG were talking about looking at the portrait trade delegation in summer of 2021, which we will certainly look at it as we go along from here. And I thank you immensely. You've been a wonderful host, and we will try and have more sessions as we go along from here. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and all the very to you. Being in India, I'm sure going to have a great time for next 3.5, 4 years out here with us. Thank you so much. Good morning to you. All the best.
Well, thank you to all of you, and thanks for inviting me. It's been great. I really enjoyed it, and also I enjoyed all this various interests of engaging and curiosity that came up. I'm very happy to take it forward. As I said, we'll give you the name of our trade officer, and so people can connect and take things forward. But then, of course, more strategically in the long term to engage with you and looking at the trade delegation.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I hope you all have a very nice day. And
thank you.
And stay safe.
And I'm sorry, Vikash, our president founder, would like to give a talk.
Yes,
he's the man behind. So, Vikash, over to you, dear.
Yes.
Thank you. That was super. I'm not doing a vote of thanks. Just my closing remarks, a little bit of history, a little bit of business ideas that I have about Sweden. I used to do a lot of business with Sweden. I worked primarily with H&M, which is one of the biggest garment retailers in the world. Yeah. They're also in India. And unlike the population of Sweden, their orders were very big because they were serving the world. So anybody in textiles must try H&M. One of the best companies, absolutely clean payment masters, no trouble, no corruption, the best customer you can ask for. And We spoke a lot. She had told me a lot on a radio. I did a radio interview. So people could maybe hear that also sometimes. Maybe we can put up a link. So thank you again. Nice work, Dilip. Thank you, Anna. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, you want to say
All
something?
right.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you all in person sometime.
Very
Bye-bye.
well.
Very well, Anna. Goodbye to you once again. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.